It's President's Day, Monday, February 16th, and we have a pretty conditional threat for some severe weather, which covers essentially the entire Southern California coast and a little blotch just to the east of San Francisco. Then we have a general threat for thunderstorms throughout the day along the entire western coast of the US. We're just getting off of a really active stretch of weather, which spanned 3 days, starting off in far western Texas, moving all the way out into the Atlantic Ocean after crossing Florida. Just yesterday, we saw some active weather down here, which ultimately ended up underperforming quite a bit due to a lack of moisture. But this would mark the fourth day in a row that we're seeing severe weather. We have not seen a stretch this active in quite some time. This is mostly just going to be for a damaging wind threat, which is going to be entirely confined to our Southern California coastal risk area. Wouldn't be surprised to see some stronger gusts up here, but this is going to be for those severe gusts potentially being near 60 miles an hour. We also could see a couple of weak spin up tornadoes. I think this risk is going to be pretty close to zero, and I'll show you why in a minute. And that risk for hail is essentially not there at all, though. Wouldn't be surprised to see something maybe half an inch to 1 inch, though, because our deep layer shear is going to. And this is how our storm is going to unfold today. We're going to see that we actually have a pretty strong line of confluence, kind of just riding up a front and eventually a occluded front. We also have our low pressure system up here riding just straight into the San Francisco Bay Area. This is going to be around very, very early in the morning. This is even before sunrise. But once we get closer to sunrise, probably about 5 hours before, that's when we'll start to see things further destabilize and really start get their act together. And eventually, right around sunrise, we'll start to see rainfall in a pretty strong fashion around the Southern California coast. This is when we'll start to see those strong storms push onshore. And I think our severe threat could potentially begin probably about 3 hours after sunrise. And I think it's going to maximize around midday or 12 p.m. Really, when our main line, this is going to be our main line right here, pushes through the Los Angeles metro and that general area. I think at that point, it's mostly going to be a damaging wind threat. We're going to have some really, really good shear parameters pushing onshore, but that's going to be essentially it. Our instability is going to be really poor, and our moisture isn't going to be that good either. Moving up towards our secondary risk area, just east of San Francisco, it's going to be a very, very isolated area. You can see this darker red blotch of precipitation. And what this is going to do, this is maybe going to last for an hour to two, as around this time. This would be around 2, 3 p.m. We could potentially see some better ingredients, so better shear, potentially better instability, although that's not looking like that's going to be there right now. This is very conditional, and I don't fully expect to see really any types of severe weather with this blotch. Just expect a stronger line of thunderstorms there. And then after that, it's really going to calm down through the night. We could potentially see a area. This is also going to be closest to a low pressure system. That's actually one of the main reasons why we're seeing that stronger blotch right here. Kind of initiated from that. Again, we could see a redevelopment potentially around the late afternoon. This would also be when the low level jet kicks in. Maybe a couple of stronger thunderstorms there, but I think essentially by then our severe threat is going to be over, and it's just going to be a couple of blotches of precipitation moving onshore and then out further to the east into the Four Corners and that type of region. And for the rest of the western coast, we're just going to see a general thunderstorm threat, and that's going to be because we have so much flow from the jet stream moving onshore. Really, the only severe area is going to be what we talked about, but here it is. You can just see that jet stream really pumping. That purple area is indicative of the strongest flow and also more forcing. One of the reasons why we're going to see such favorable shear for our storms almost carry that, and that's going to move directly into the Southern California area. Then, of course, you can see that low pressure system kind of start to move through the San Francisco area. One of the reasons why we're seeing that potential for some stronger thunderstorms up there. And then you also see another cyclone rotating up near the Pacific Northwest, also bringing a jetmax of its own onshore. Just another reason why we're seeing so much rain out here. But despite all this flow across the US, there's really not much going on precipitation wise. As you can see here, it's going to be very quiet, except for one little area up here in the northeast. But that's just going to be because we have another low pressure system interacting with that as well, bringing some more forcing there. And now we're going to go into a deep dive with those ingredients, and immediately our eyes are going to get drawn to just how good these shear parameters are. This is really going to carry this entire system ingredients wise. Immediately, you can also notice that this sounding literally says that there is going to be zero instability. I think it will probably be in that range of 0 to 500, probably closer to that 100 to 50 range. I don't actually think we're going to see zero instability because that system is going to advect a lot of warm, moist air, also kind of increasing that instability. But once again, obviously, it's not going to be that much, and it might even be negligible. But going back to the shear parameters, nearly 500 surface helicity in our Southern California. This is actually a sounding taken right over the Los Angeles metro area. So just showing how good the environment is there. Also nearly 40 knots of low low shear, 80 knots of deep layer shear, a massive curvature in our holograph, and just a textbook elongation out right there. That is the main reason why we could potentially see a couple of spin up tornadoes here. And one of the reasons why there are concerns about maybe a damaging wind threat. But thermodynamically, this is not very impressive. We see a baby inverted V. That definitely shows that there's no capping here, but it also shows that this is a really stable environment. Our LCL, which is going to be our cloud base, is going to be a bit higher, which could hinder maybe that threat of a couple of tornadoes. I definitely think it's going to be lower than this. I do think we will see a couple of surface-based storms. I don't think it'll be necessarily 3 kilometers off the ground, but this is showing definitely a couple more soundings that I've seen are kind of hinting towards maybe a higher base storm mode, which could actually help with that threat of damaging winds and lower that threat of tornadoes. So it's definitely something to look out for there. But the main takeaway from this is that our shear parameters are super good, instability super bad, kind of a low chance that we might see anything at all. But because our shear parameters are so good, definitely want to be on the lookout. Now we're moving to that one little blotch just to the east of San Francisco, kind of hugging our low pressure system. And this is something that definitely kind of looks like a cold core setup. It kind of isn't though, because we don't have really a closed 500 millibar cold core low, but we definitely do see higher lapse rates and a sharp cutoff. Once you get higher up, we see low cloud bases, not super good shear, not super good instability. Our 3 Cape on earlier soundings was closer to 100 in a couple of areas, but this is only showing 16. But once again, because our shear isn't going to be bad by any means, our deep layer shear is actually going to be 70 knots, low shear quite good. Our cloud bases are going to be super low to the ground. These are absolutely going to be surface-based storms. We do see a baby inverted V here, a little curvature on our hodograph, and then a elongation out. I'm going to rule out the chance for tornadoes or damaging winds. I just think the threat here is so close to zero. I'm surprised the Storm Prediction Center has even outlined a risk here at all, that it's almost going to be negligible. I definitely would not be surprised to see a stronger line of thunderstorms move through this area though. And I'm not going to entirely say severe weather is off the table. I just don't really see it to be super likely in this region.